I request Mr. Sachin Bhatia, Chief Growth Officer, Exotel, to come on stage and give his presentation. It will be followed by a presentation by Gaurav Jindal, Senior Manager, Business Development from Thales. And after those two presentations, we have a very exciting panel discussion before lunch. That will be on states leading in digital empowerment for citizen-centric service, challenges and opportunities. So, a lot of exciting discussion will happen for sure. Over to you, Sachin.
Observing the three gentlemen, a phrase came to my mind. I think you are the Trimurti or the Tridev of Digital India. It is mind-boggling the kind of projects that have been done. It's mind-boggling the scale that you guys are handling, and being an engineer, I'm fascinated by what is happening in the corridors of those companies. Okay, as the organizer said, I will keep it very, very short. I will not read from the slides. There are things that I want to talk about. But I just have, I think, one idea that I want all of you to leave with before we leave this session. I'm going to talk about engagement with citizens, and I'm going to draw a little bit of parallel with what's happening with us as consumers. Okay, a little bit of stats first. 2021, we had 450 million smartphones, 750 million, I think, feature phones. And we're going to have 1 billion smartphones by 2026 and still about 250 million feature phones. And somebody from CDOT was here. I think it's thanks to the policies by TRAI that we are having such fabulous penetration in the country. And this enables a different league and generation. People who can't read, write today have a feature phone, and the challenges in front of us are, for example, all of us have used UPI, and we are working with NPCI right now, that how do you make a UPI transaction using a phone call? It might sound trivial, but all of us have used Bheem because we can read and write. But if you only had a feature phone, how would you do a UPI transaction? Those are kind of problems that we are solving. But let me talk about the three trends that we are seeing. And I will draw parallels from the consumer space. The first is internet penetration, and we have read phone penetration is, India is at the forefront at which pace we are able to do this. The second is all of us have seen, and I'm going to give some example, and we'll try to keep it a little interactive. I see the energy drops down. How many of you have booked a cab or ordered food online or bought something online in the last 24 hours? Show of hands. About 70-ish%. I want you to think of that last transaction that you did, when you ordered food and the food was delivered, or when you booked a cab and the cab arrived, or when you ordered something online and it was delivered. Do you remember how many times you had to touch with the company? You started with the app, maybe they sent you an SMS, maybe the driver had to do a call with you. Do you remember, typically in such a simple journey, how many touch points are there? Any guesses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, it's minimum 2, averages between 2 to 4. For any simple transaction, right? Any transaction that we are doing in our life, we are engaging with the company, we are interacting with the company 2 to 3 times. And this is not happening on one medium. You are sometimes on a call, you are sometimes on an SMS, you are getting a notification on WhatsApp, sometimes you are talking to the driver, sometimes you are talking to the call center. All these are different technologies that exist today in the market. And this channel explosion is just going through the roof. Right now, what's the latest rage in terms of channel? What do all of us do first thing in the morning and last thing before we sleep? WhatsApp. If you're not doing it, how many of you are not on WhatsApp? The 0 hands, right? So now businesses are leveraging on that channel, because any guesses how many WhatsApp users are there in India who log into WhatsApp every day, who check WhatsApp every day? Any guesses? India is about 1.2 billion. It's pretty accurate, sir. It's 550 million, which is about 55 crores. But it's mind-boggling. There is nothing else which has a penetration like that. And businesses know that. I hope government also knows that. Now, I know that we want to create our own WhatsApp network, but if you have a project to run and you want to communicate the fastest to somebody, the method is WhatsApp. While we are figuring out creating a parallel network, You need to figure out how to reach your customers, your citizens on channels where they exist today, which they are checking 30 times a day. Last guess, how many of you have checked your SMS in the last 24 hours? About 10% people. I don't check SMS anymore because it's just too spammy. The read rates on SMS are about 8 to 9% at max. Okay. Any guesses the read rates on WhatsApp? We can all guess. How many unread messages do you have on WhatsApp right now? Right? It's about 90-95%. And I'm talking about business to consumer messages. The consumer to consumer messages are, I don't miss messages from my friends, but business to consumer messages is also 90%. So this channel is the new channel that we are observing. So new channels are coming up and there'll be more channels. I hope that the government of India and what we heard, I think in the presentation from NIC, there is another social network that is getting created. I hope we have our own social network. It's a very hard problem because there are network impacts and network effects. A lot of people are trying it. But for now, if I have to communicate, WhatsApp seems to be the most effective engagement medium. And last is a lot of new technology which did not exist a few years back has become very mature. My cursory glance in this room, most of us are parents, right? I'm a father of two sons, 11 years and 10 years, and it amazes me how they interact with the phone. It is very different from how I interact, and it is very, very different from how my dad interacts. Have you seen kids speaking to the phone? Google search, Alexa, Siri, they speak, they don't type. Even if they can write, but speaking is much more effective and I find it awkward. Of course, my dad never tries it. I still try it just to see, because I'm a computer science engineer, where the technology is. But my son would search anything on Google using search, voice search. So that is happening because we are seeing conversational and voice AI becoming very mature now. It can understand most of the things in vernacular languages. You also have natural language understanding concepts. You have models now which can understand what's a banking language, what's a healthcare language, what's the jargon, what's the vocabulary. All this is readily available today. And finally, you have capability to aggregate a lot of data. We saw some of that data, what we call as Holy Grail of Customer Experience, CDP. So somebody could actually effectively say Sachin orders foods, he usually orders foods at 10 a.m., he likes to be reached on WhatsApp and not phone. All this data can be deciphered from all the data lakes or journey lakes that exist today or that are possible to create today. Okay, so these are things that are changing. Now put that in a CitizenX environment. All of you are interacting, your departments are interacting with citizens every day. There are document collections happening, there are notifications of schemes happening, there is registrations happening. What if you could use some of this and reduce the time it does to collect data, reduce the cost you do to collect data? Any of you tried applying home loan recently? Most companies can now collect data on WhatsApp. You don't need to talk to anyone, you don't need to visit. Now there are APIs available from Aadhaar where your KYC can happen automatically. So you never need to interact with anyone just to get that loan approval process. Only if you are stuck somewhere, you need to talk to someone. Think the same thing in the citizen aspect. Whenever you are collecting, let's say, loans back, private sector has done that, we have done something with SBI. If our first intent is we will send a SMS, the read rate is 9%. If you are sending SMS for compliance, it's okay. But if you really want somebody to read, you need to have a different medium to reach, because the reality is nobody is reading SMS. Our job doesn't end by sending a notification as long as it's not compliance. If it's compliance, nobody cares. But if you really want them to read and take an action, maybe a different channel should be experimented. So let me come back to that journey problem that I talked about. Every simple journey is 2 or 3 touch points across mediums. Let's say we want to change one small part of that journey. Instead of sending SMS, we want to send WhatsApp, or we want to send a message before a call, right? Let's say we want to make this small change. Today, this small change requires a system integrator to come in because you have a different SMS provider, a different WhatsApp provider, a different call provider. Somebody will come in, make it into a 6-month project, and while the time it is done, the users want something else. You want to experiment something else. The question is, how do you get a platform which you can quickly experiment on, which doesn't require cost, time? How do you quickly experiment? And that is the problem we at Exotel are trying to solve. We have all the channels available on cloud. There is zero capex. You want to start a small experiment by sending SMSs, calls, and WhatsApp, all data located in India, completely indigenous technology, and you want to make those quick changes yourself, you will be able to do that. Start as pilots and see what can scale, and then we'll see whether this needs to be an RFP or not an RFP. But if you want to do quick experimentation, you can self-serve on the platform and start experimenting there. We have some thoughts on what can be done through ICT interventions. And I will not go, because I think most of the people here are experts in this field. So I'll just put my thoughts and ideas. You have the infrastructure by the government, whether it's physical, social, environment. And then the ICT intervention can help you improve governance, improve operation and maintenance, improve asset management, and of course, citizen interface. Those are areas where we feel ICT intervention can really, really impact. And we have seen that getting impacted in some of the projects being discussed. If you look at the applications, these are just representative lists, but you could have hundreds and thousands of applications, like what Mr. IPS Sethi was presenting. Today, the dashboard, you need to go and pull information. What if every morning the ministry gets the most important KPIs right on their WhatsApp, so that everybody is aware? Now, that might be a priority, that might not be a priority, that could be an experiment, but more data consumed means more better decisions, right? So, any area of application, engagement is extremely critical. We are beyond times when you only wanted CRM systems or ICT applications to be done where a data operator can enter and information can be stored. Information has to be dissipated, there has to be engagement. If there is no engagement, the data is useless. So, think in your areas, where are you interacting? I was talking to somebody from Assam this afternoon, and this was a power generation company, not even a distribution company. Distribution is what talks to the citizens. And I said, how do you collect information from your vendors? How do you hire people? If your hiring requires resumes to come in, somebody scanning through it, why not just put a link and people can give that information on WhatsApp or whatever channel you prefer, and that would reduce the total time that you're taking. So think where engagements can happen and how much time and cost can be reduced because of that. We want to introduce the concept of command center. I think smart cities had this model very well laid out, and we have worked with a few smart cities. All of you are aware of what is command center. So you basically have all these services being dissipated or serviced through a command center in a state or a specific body. And then all those are the use cases that the command center today serves. This is part of the smart city model that exists today, right? So whether you want to collect voice of citizen, you want to run surveys, you want to run emergency services, a few projects were discussed. All this is done by what is called as a command center. And we today have a module which can help, we call it the full stack customer engagement platform, which can help you run the command center. At the very base level, you have channels as an API. So you could, somebody was talking about data as an API, you could now, today we process about 20 million calls every day. And these are all API calls. These are not somebody making a phone call. And a good example is the Uber driver call or a Ola driver call that you do. All that is done on our platform. So somebody presses a button and 2 calls are generated. The number is masked. You don't know the other side's number, and you're talking to each other, right? So the communication layer can send messages across mediums, whether it's SMS, WhatsApp, phone calls. All that is available as an API. Your systems can access it, your applications can access it. If you have applications, you want them to be communication enabled, you can use the API layer. The second layer is when you want a human intervention to happen. So if you want a set of call center agents to be connected to the citizens are coming in. Let's say there was an IVR and now you want it to be routed to a certain department. All this is handled by the contact center layer, which is running over the communication API. And finally, we have the conversational AI layer, which is the future. So what is going to happen in future is you will receive a notification. You can respond to that notification and talk to a bot. And if the bot is not able to solve your problem, you will get connected to the agent. That's the future. Nobody will straight away connect to a human being. It is not needed. It's gross misuse of human intelligence. If all you're answering is, what's my bank balance? Bank balance can be dissipated by a bot. Where is my order? That can be told by a bot. But when you are an emotionally charged situation, where is my money? Or why has the order still not come? If you want to vent out frustration, anxiety, that is when you require a human being to come in, calm you, because only human beings can support you emotionally. Machines cannot, at least till now. Right? So think of human beings as your last line of defense, and you can have conversational bots and start automating 5%, 7%, 10% of your inquiries, and all this can be done in vernacular. By the way, we are working with WhatsApp. A lot of people cannot type. So for example, somebody who is illiterate in one of those 25,000 villages which only have 2G services that somebody was mentioning, how do they use WhatsApp? Any idea? Voice message. He will say, "Bhaiya, hum yahan hai, to wahan pahunch jao." This is actually how WhatsApp is used in the villages. So what if now they could also interact with your organizations using that voice message? They don't need to be on call. Call is very expensive for them and for you to handle. They can send a voice message and you can asynchronously respond to that voice message. Right? So these are things that are happening new. Let me just try and wrap up. Okay. These are some of the applications and use cases that we have done in the past. Mostly smart cities, helplines, across states. We have worked in the following states, and we have also worked with other government agencies in the following countries. With Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, with Zambia, mostly around emerging geographies, and most use cases are around how do you engage with your citizens better. Emergency services is one kind of application. I'll skip through it. All this is repeated. Support services, your citizens could come in through any of the channels. You could have, the important thing is you could also have field people. Now somebody who has to go and solve a problem, let's say, I think Delhi government had this project. You can put a photo of an area which is dirty. It will go to the department, then somebody will be assigned that task, and then that area would be cleaned. All this workflow can be done on the platform. Somebody mentioned about disaster management. I think a lot of such projects are running. For Chennai and Kerala, we at Exotel have done something. Examples of actual WhatsApp applications that have been developed in some of the use cases around citizen and government interactions. So we have telemedicine, unemployment care, collecting data, or filing a complaint. A simple thing as filing a complaint. We also, during COVID, did a pro bono project, and I think a lot of people rose up to it, in which we handled about 5.5 crore calls and 20 crore SMSs, where we were just telling people on how to get vaccinated, where to find oxygen concentrators and stuff like that. All this was done because we had a platform that could run it at scale. A little bit more examples on where you could do. And that's us as a visualization. At the very top, you have all the use cases. We have 3 broad applications on the platform. We have a conversation layer, and this is available across channels. We have a booth number 1 here. If any of you are interested in doing a pilot, happy to talk to you guys. Thank you so much. I don't want to take a lot of time. Thanks.
Thanks, Sachin, for that.